TC number 396, 5 seconds. Start. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Sir, I rise to support the demands for grants of the Ministry of Defence. Sir, the armed forces of India deserve the gratitude of the whole nation for carrying out a magnificent job ever since independence. The primary responsibility of the armed forces is to keep the borders of the country inviolate. Apart from this, the armed forces have been employed in numerous other tasks, such as in the aid of civil power, going to the rescue of neighboring countries, anti-terrorism, and helping civilian population in fighting natural calamity. All these multifarious duties have been carried out by the three services with extreme courage, devotion to duty, and self sacrifice. The Indian Army, in particular, have proved themselves second to none time and time again. The operation carried out in Maldives a couple of years back showed planning and execution of the highest order. In fact, it was reminiscent of much publicized and highly praised action undertaken by Israel armed forces. In the recent operations of the IPKF in Sri Lanka, the officers and Jawans not only showed exemplary bravery and courage but tackled a difficult situation in a most tactful manner. It will not be out of place to mention that the tendency to use the armed forces too frequently in aid of civil power should be strictly checked. At present, our armed forces are totally political, but too much involvement in anti terrorist activities and in the aid of civil power will tend to politicize the army and its main task of defending the integrity of the country will suffer adversely. I am sure the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister will agree that the task of maintaining law and order should be carried out either by the local police or by the paramilitary forces. The army should only be called out as a last resort, and that too, as far as possible, only for carrying out flag marches as a show of strength to restore confidence and morale of the civil population. As a rule, the army should never get entangled in street fighting against our own citizens as has happened in the past sometimes. Sir, the scenario of power balance in the world is undergoing a rapid transformation. With the reduction of armaments both in the Western and Eastern blocs, the arms race between the superpowers appears to have come to an end. The major military pacts like the NATO and the Warsaw have been rendered redundant. There is no gainsaying the fact that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was the founder of non-alignment movement and that India's policy of non-alignment stands fully vindicated. However, new alignments are bound to take place. The multinational giants manufacturing armaments will create lobbies and use pressure to find new markets for their lethal merchandise. India will have to remain doubly alert to ensure that the power balance in Southeast Asia does not shift to our driftmen. In this context, our planner will have to take a hard look at our nuclear policy. Although India is committed to the principles of Panchashil and our peace-loving intentions are well known, still we must have adequate deterrent to safeguard peace in Southeast Asia. It is now almost confirmed that Pakistan has developed a nuclear capability, although they still lack a delivery system. But this is a matter of grave concern. In these circumstances, I am of the considered opinion that we should go in for a nuclear option. India is now a mature democracy, and our leaders should be able to convince the world opinion that the possession of a nuclear deterrent by India will be the surest way of ensuring lasting peace in this region. I will now take a few other points. The first one is about the situation in Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan. Successive governments have been trying to tackle this situation, but I am sorry to say with a little success. The crux of the problem lies in the planning camps for these terrorists established in Pakistan. Unless we can dismantle those training camps, this problem will remain. I have some experience in the army and in intelligence services in the army, and I think the old adage that attack is the best means of defense is still holds good. I would say the best way for India to stop Pakistan from training these terrorists and sending them into India is to start training Afghans, Pukhtuns and Muzaffarins of Karachi and infiltrate them there so that Pakistan realizes what it is to create trouble in another country. I would like to say a few words about allocation of funds. R&D is the most important activity as far as armed forces are concerned, and I think it is imperative for us to indigenize the production of heavy armaments, compact aircraft and fighting ships for our navy. We have been hearing the main battle tanks and the light compact aircraft for the last 15 years. My next point is that the percentage of defense expenditure as compared to the total expenditure has been steadily going down since 2007, while that the Pakistan has been steadily going up, and the size and armaments of Pakistan Army, Navy and Air Force have almost doubled in the last 2 or 3 years. I agree that our financial position, as has been brought out by the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister, is not very happy. But can we afford to be lax in the allotment for the security of our country when our neighbors China and Pakistan are building up very rapidly? I would request the Defense Minister, the Finance Minister, and the Prime Minister to pay particular attention to this and to see that our army and its two sister services, the Navy and the Air Force, are not run down under any circumstances and are given proper allocation of funds.